Hey everybody, Local 11 Magazine. Here at Hogs and Honeys in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. We're here with Rob and the rest. Jan Kapansky, Rob, and Joe. A couple of band members couldn't make it, but these guys, they know the whole story. And without me getting into a whole bunch of canned things, I want to let these guys tell us about the band and the formation, 1966, Hartford, Wisconsin, Mayville, and Beaver Dam, and we came together, and now we are 50 years later, and we're doing an anniversary tour. All accomplished musicians. I know the stories are going to be wild, so I'm going to start it with Rob. Okay, it's Rob and the rest. So start us off, Rob. How did this all?
You're asking a lot for us to go back and remember what happened 50 years ago.
Yeah, it was good times.
Well, basically all of us had some sort of a music background through our parents and stuff like that. My mom. Yeah, I was in a band in high school. And I met up with Jerry Jacklin, our drummer, when I was in high school, and he and I started to go and play in a little trio with another guy that was no longer with us. He's in the great band in the sky now. And we played at beer parties, and we played at private parties, and then we played at a high school dance or two. And, I don't know, you can hardly call us a band, but we were a rock and roll band.
Making music.
Yeah, and then one of the guys, the other guitar player left, and somehow, some way, and I don't remember how it happened, but I met Joe, and we got Joe in the group, and it just kind of went on from there. We got a couple other guys, a couple of guys left, and then we had Larry Rosenthal, who was from Beaver Dam. Class is 1965, and then he brought Jan in.
Class of 67.
And it was right those days. I mean, if you had a band.
Well, first you had to have a garage where you could play. So that's where that term garage band started.
So Jerry and I started practicing in his farmhouse in the town of Ruby.
Upstairs, downstairs, in the basement?
No, in the kitchen. In the kitchen. His dad was a dairy farmer.
Really? And they let you do it. So what was the music that inspired you? What was the top hit? Or was there
I think we were all inspired by what happened when we were like in the early 1960s. You know, you had some stuff that was happening on the radio. We all were getting into our first radios. You know, I remember listening to the radio, and I imagine Joe was like that too, and Jan was like that.
You had a one transistor beige GE with an earplug, and you'd have to stand in a certain part of the house to pick up WLS in Chicago.
I was just going to say WLS.
And
right?
WLS for me was that was the hot stuff.
Didn't Milwaukee have a station too?
WOKY and WRIT. Now, what did you listen to mostly?
OKY, because my brother was 10 years older than me. That's what I went to bed with. We shared a bedroom together. And WOKY. What was it?
Bob
Berry.
Yeah.
The Germans were in Milwaukee, and the Polish listened to Chicago.
Well, that's that south side.
And then, you know, my wife, she was a big WRIT in Milwaukee because she was a south side of Milwaukee girl. But anyhow, we started listening to this stuff, and for me, I guess the first group that really made an impression on me, my dad was a part-time bouncer bartender at a place called Marty Zifko's in Hartford. Now, people out there, you've probably been to Marty Zifko's. It was a big ballroom built in the 1920s. And by the time we got into the 1960s, rock and roll was taking over. So Marty Zifko, with polka music fading out, no longer was he booking Whoopie John and the Six Fat Dutchmen or whatever they were called.
He was moving
they were bringing in rock and roll groups. And my dad one night came and said there was this group that he thought I was listening to on the radio. And so he snuck me out there for about a half hour. And it was the Four Seasons, in the very, very early days of Four Seasons. So that was probably the first impression that I had. Because, oh my gosh,
did you get to hang out for the whole concert? Or
well, you know, I was in the back of.
Just kind of peeking into the window?
No, I was in the back with my dad, where my dad was working, and stay back here, stay out of trouble.
Too
young to drink.
What song were they doing when you walked in?
At that time, The only song that I really recognized that they did was Big Girls Don't Cry and Dawn. And Dawn was my favorite song. And I actually, at that time, picked up a guitar that my mother had from the 1930s. And there was this little thing that went ding, 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 ding in a song like that. So I learned how to play along with that with the records and stuff like that.
That was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
How'd you get started?
Good question.
Your big brother.
Well, we all played the trumpet in high school band. My sister and my brother. And then I.
Did everybody have to be into music in high school?
Not really. It was ironic because the trumpet was a hand-me-down. You know, I got it, and then after I graduated from high school, there was. Well, I should say after the band, because there's a couple songs we still do now that I play trumpet with. Mellow Yellow and, well, we gotta have the Beer Girl polka. No, not the Beer Girl.
Heaven, there is no beer.
Heaven, there is no beer.
For intermission or for the end of the evening?
But, and it's ironic because my brother moved to Crandon, had a large family, and he got the trumpet back for his kids to play, and then eventually in West Bend, I was one of the co-founding people of the West Bend Community Band, and I got the trumpet back, but it was in pretty rough shape, so he got it back, and then I got a different trumpet. But prior to that, in high school, I got a band together with Rob said called the Scram Bells, and we played at various things. It was kind of ironic because we found this excellent guitar sax player from Oregon. But the principal at the high school in Mayville at the time would not allow anyone from other than Mayville High School to partake in anything at Mayville High School, so he could never play with us at Mayville High School. Yeah, and then once it got over, then we started playing, and then for some reason we kind of folded, and then that's when Rob and I got together and eventually did our thing. And you know, jumping 50 years later, there's this bar in Boltonville that has open jams. East of Kewaskum, probably. Yeah.
About 8 miles north of West Bend. Up
Yeah. So anyhow, what happened?
Right spot in the road now.
A feed mill and 2 bars and a gas station is about what it is. But anyhow, they had these open jams, and then which I went to just about every Sunday, and that was the big thing. And then I don't know, I called Rob one day, and he came over, and we started jamming that one Sunday afternoon. And there's a picture of that someplace on Facebook.
Yeah, and that was how, like 48 years after we quit playing, and so that's how we proceeded to start all over again. You know, so that's kind of where it started. But you know, I think Jan's got one of the most interesting backgrounds with music, and let him tell his story.
Well, you have some family members.
I lucked out back in the day. My dad goes way back into the 20s and 30s. He had a big 16-piece band. They had dual bass fiddle, Al Paul and the Sophisticates of Swing. Real tongue twister.
That's a mouthful.
So where's the Al Paul come from?
That's my dad's name, Al Paul, and then Kafkansky.
Okay.
Went all over Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota. They had a
They pulled a big
32
trailer behind
Crown Imperial with a V16, so these guys with their V8s
Gas
and
was cheap.
V10s. He said they could watch the gas, but they had like a small Airstream trailer that this whole band in, and they go down the road. And he talked about outrunning motorcycle cops with the trailer and the band.
Really? Before that big sucker, just go.
And they traveled, bring it up to the 66 or so. We all heard Elvis. I mean, you watched it, but that didn't do anything for me. I was like, okay, right at that age. And wow, you heard the Beatles for the first time, and you went nuts. You just went, whoa, who are these guys and what's this music? And then all of a sudden it was the Stones and the Kinks.
And WTKM, where I was a disc jockey at for a while, they would have these Saturday afternoon teen dances. And Joe mentioned Bob Berry. Bob Berry was a DJ at WTKM, even though WTKM played mostly polka music. In the afternoon, the kids got out of school, they played rock. My mother didn't want me to go see these bands because it was the devil's music.
constant pressure from the parents. Your hair's too long. I hate the music.
You said tell me that too.
Just unbelievable.
Ironic, my first guitar, I pleaded my parents to buy, and a little amp and stuff. And while they did it, we were playing at Leroy, St. Andrews Big,
Right.
and they were in the back of that bar. And somebody came up and he says, "What's with your parents?" I said, "What do you mean?" "They're just praising you up and down. That's our boy. Look at that, And I'm going, "And you were the guys that were complaining about getting me a guitar, and now you're standing back there going, 'Yeah, that's my boy.'"
My dad called them electrified toilets. No use for it, but he was a saxophone and a concert violinist.
That getting together and singing and performing, that was just it was an explosionary thing, There were rock and roll bands all over the place. What were the bands that you played with here in Beaver Dam?
In Beaver Dam, Larry and I played in the Blue Raiders. That was probably the first official band. But again, when the war came, everybody had to kind of go their way. I went into the Coast Guard. Everybody else either went to college or they went to Vietnam. Jan was 17 years of age. And we were playing in beer bars, and we were playing in nightclubs, and they had to get me a fake ID.
Yeah.
I was never carded once, which is really the funny part. I sat there when you would memorize that fake ID so I could answer every question. Nobody had Illinois, Minnesota, because they couldn't drink in those states, and they would drive.
It's state law requires, that was in Manitowoc.
UTV, ATV.
You must be. Most of our jobs were either, probably most of them were playing in called the minor bars, the beer bars. Les and Willie's in 33 East here, called the Cold Press now. That was a big place on Friday night. We were literally a house band here for a long time on Friday nights.
Harold's Club 23.
Harold's Club 23 in Sheboygan.
The drop zone.
Was a bar.
They take people skydiving.
It's skydiving, private airport. Right, it's right on the highway in Amo.
It's ironic, Rob, before I was mentioning about garage bands, we actually practiced in my parents' garage, which was on a hill, the highest part of Mayville, next to the Catholic Church. And, you could hear us while my dad had friends and said, you're
right over the river.
Over in the marsh.
They could hear us all over town.
They could hear us all over town. People come over. And there was one episode where I guess one of our neighbors wasn't happy, and I couldn't believe it. My dad stood up for me. Let the kids play, this kind of stuff.
They weren't used to this stuff. My dad said, "Okay, you don't want to play saxophone, you want to play violin, what do you want?" And he had taken me to Oshkosh to have a dentist look at my teeth for braces. And when the guy stuck his fingers in my mouth, I can't remember how old I was, 10, 12 years old, I bit him. And on the way home, my dad says, "Well, what do you want?" In the worst Polish, I don't even say it.
And later you can tell us.
And I said, "I want a drum set." So I had a friend who just had a heart attack. I got a full set of beautiful redwood drums. He put me out on the porch. They needed a bass player, so they didn't even say, "Hey, can you play?"
I didn't know that he played drums until we got reunited.
I said, "Let's practice for a year and get pretty good." And he looked at me and he said, "We don't have
much time.
We don't have that much time. Let's just start playing." I said, "Yeah, but And he said, No. Let's just have some fun." So the first time we play it, everybody, we stunk. It was bad.
People thought we were good.
And people came up and
We said we were good.
we would look out, and all these people were singing these songs. They were in their 50s, their 60s. Some of them had their grandkids with them, though. We looked at each other and we said, maybe we got something.
Yeah.
And so we kept playing up. We started going to some clubs. We started getting phone calls. We got a phone call from an agent. He said, "Hey, I think I can find a place for you guys."
Cover band now. I think we're a memory band. Because every song we play, when we play it, it triggers a different memory for the people that are in the crowd. But this memory thing is really big for people when they get to be in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
We grow sentimental.
The oldest guy is 70 years old, and this is the baby. It's what, 67?
Going to be 68
You know,
summer.
we're privileged to be alive and doing this.
Well, I made it.
I made it. Yeah.